But we live in a world that says we have the right to have more, do more, get more, be more. We need to be driven to be involved with more events and to accomplish more things, no matter what stands in our way. And if we can break through it, we're just that much more, in this case, of a man, or that much more better of a person. What's behind this? What's the message we are showing people in our churches about what's important? What's behind this issue of busyness and always hurrying from one event to another?
Wow. I don't know. I think for me, Brian, I think it's just where I live is a huge part of it. I don't know whether I have any choice. I just live in the middle of Auckland. You know, on a bad day, it takes me 90 minutes to get to work.
Yeah.
You know, I think.
Except remember that conversation we had in your office with a visitor from Britain, who was stressing how peaceful and quiet life in Auckland is compared with life in southern England.
There's always somewhere worse.
Where they get up at 6:30 in the morning to get on the train to go to London to work.
Yeah.
But you're saying what? Your commute takes so much time. You got to do what? How does that affect you?
Well, it just adds to the busyness. I've got to get up early, and I've got to. I've lost 90 minutes of my day. Mm-hmm. Now, why do I do that? I'm not sure.
So probably because we live spread out. For Aucklanders anyway, you got to do a lot of driving, so that takes up time.
Yeah.
That makes your time short. But
and there's all the labour-saving devices.
Yeah.
The computers, the washing machines, all the rest of it. They all save us time, right? And the more of those things we've got, the less time we have.
Yeah. I remember
Something's wrong somewhere.
There was some research that put out where, because of all of our new phones and technology in the early, like 20 years ago or so, they're saying that we're going to have a hard time figuring out how to stay and work up to retirement age, because you're going to be able to get everything done so quickly. What are you going to do with all this extra time? And you're going to be working 3-day weeks and things. That was the big talk in the early 80s and things, and now that has radically changed. It's just the opposite. So why is that driving us more? There's got to be more to it than just, I live far away and I got lots of people calling me. What's the drives that make us so busy?
I think there are several. For example, just the cultural, unidentified pressure to, if you're not busy, you're not successful, and you don't actually mean much. And so we have to keep busy to show that we're of worth. That's one pressure. I think in the cultural area too, there's even finance, in some countries, if people are paid a lot more, they can actually perhaps then afford to take a weekend off. But I also think a lot of people I work with, fear is the reason that they're busy. So if they slow down and allow what's within to come up, they can't tolerate it. So they have to keep busy to keep things suppressed.
You mean internal stuff?
Internal stuff, on self-esteem, of unbearable feelings, to use David Riddell's term, all of this sort of stuff, anxiety particularly.
Yeah. See, I agree. I think there's an identity thing here where the more busy I am, the more important I look, the more significant I look, the more relevant I look. And then there is that thing, the busier I can stay, the less I have to deal with my self-doubts, deal with the fact that I know other people are judging me and may not like what I'm doing. So if I'm so busy, I can only do everything at 30% as opposed to one thing at 100% and prove that I'm not that smart. So
or face my relationships,
Yeah, well,
are they working out?
And talk it through. Talk it through. So my concern is that in the church world, there's stuff that we teach and there's stuff that we see. And so the things that gets taught is done in music and singing and preaching and Bible studies, but the things that are caught are what people observe about our lives. My concern is when our message, and when we talk about take time with Jesus and have your quiet times and rest and keep a Sabbath, and you say these things, but if you live a life of hurry and busyness, and I don't have time to slow down and talk with you, but we teach, we're going to be there for one another, that whenever there's a disconnect, people only remember what is caught. So what is it that we're teaching? I mean, is this how Christ has asked us to live? What's the message here?
But how much of this do you think is personality, Brian? We have different spiritual pathways, don't we? Some people are more active, so they need to keep busy. And the worst thing you can get them to do is to slow down and have a quiet time by themselves.
Except that's the story of Martha and Mary, isn't it?
It is.
Jesus quite clearly says that Martha got it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's activists. I mean, I'm an activist. But even as an activist, there's got to be times when I stop and be reminded. Because if I don't stop, I stay active in all the wrong stuff. And there's this tension between be busy, work for Jesus, do the things of the kingdom, but then also be still and abide in me. And I think we get caught up, we throw out words like balance, and then we throw out words like boundaries. And I think we talk more about boundaries. I got to have my boundaries, and this is my time, and this is your time, and schedule it nice and stuff. Where I don't think that's in the Bible. I'm more concerned about the issue of balance. When do I get active and drive and work hard for Jesus and do my giftings well, but then when do I stop and be still? Because I think the issue here for me isn't so much busyness, because we're busy, which means we're active. It's more about issues of hurrying. Am I so hurrying because I'm trying to gather so much stuff because I haven't slowed down? So how do you live the tension of both? Be active, but then at the same time be still. So how do you do that in real life?
I think in real life, it's about listening to God, and doing what you believe God's showing you, inviting you to do, and living out of that. So sometimes God will say, Phil, stop, stay. Sometimes I'll know what to do, but I think that's the key.
Well, see, I have friends, they'll hear you say that, you go, what the hang are you talking about? How do you know it's God?
Yeah.
So how do you know it's God saying stop?
My response would be practice. So sometimes if God says stop, and then or I love you, and then I might think, is that me? But then if God says go to Brian and tell him this message, and you say that's the very thing I've been waiting to hear, and if that voice is the same over time, my faith, my confidence would grow that it's God's voice saying stop, or
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's a technical response to the issue as well. I wonder if a lot of the time we're busy because we are not organised. We're busy because we're not good at forward planning, or we're busy because I'm not a good delegator.
Yeah.
And so I wonder whether there are technical, practical skills that we have to learn to get on top of some of these things.
Yeah. See, I remember early days being youth pastor, getting nailed by my senior pastor about my lack of time organization. And he would give me different day planners and all before the whole iPods, the iPhone stuff. And on my case, you got to schedule more. And the whole thing about scheduling more was always so that I could fit more in.
Right.
And that was the problem, because there is that technical thing. Be good stewards of your time, but there's also that adaptive issue. Am I actually being busy in the areas that I'm supposed to be busy in? I look back now at what I used to do as a youth pastor, especially in the early days, and what I accomplished and what I could have done in 2 days instead of 6 or 7, because I was wasting my time doing stuff that just didn't matter. And it was driven by significance issues, relevancy issues, not only of mine, but of the church I was serving at the same time. And so it's that balance of be good stewards, I think is what you're saying, of your time and your resources. But then also make sure you live in a way of some kind of rhythm and practice that reminds us we're only busy in the stuff that matters.
So it's the more thing. Our culture is perpetually always driving us for more. More. And that spills over into time because it has to.
Say more about that. I'm kidding.
I've just come from supervision, and I told my supervisor, what I was coming to talk about busyness. And whenever I tell anyone I'm talking about busyness, they laugh, But she reminded me at supervision, the 10 Commandments, observe the Sabbath. And she says it's for people like her and I to show us that manic rescuers like us can't save the world. And so, we have to, God's built-in rest. I've just got to do it, which is easier said than done. But following some of those rhythms, saying no is another one.
I got one final question for us, and Charles, I want to ask you. Principal Carey, Baptist College, very busy with family, young children, extra care with your son, married, a good marriage, running the school. Yet you guys find time to do things like walk the Tasman. You find time to go on these holidays. how does that fit in? I mean, you're so busy. I know a lot of people just don't take their holiday time. So why do you make space for that kind of thing?
Because I don't think, I just don't think we would survive if we didn't. I think, for me personally, the most important thing is forward planning. And I know that sounds very organised, and I think we do have to slow down and to listen to God within that. What are the priorities? Like Phil was talking, I think supervision is hugely important. So often we run and grab these things when we're in a mess, but I think it's forward planning. When I started pastoring, I had no idea whether I had done enough work or not. And because of that, I did too much work. As soon as a supervisor came in, they said, Giles, you've done a good day's work. And then I realised that I can pull back. So I think forward planning time with God, forward planning time with wise people, forward planning the holidays. If we work with a lot of people who are in ministry, forward plan the preaching roster. And I think that's a huge part of life, because we're no good to anyone. We're no good to the kingdom if we are tired, if we burn out.
I guess this topic of busyness and hurriness, for me, the issue here is I don't think God's people here in New Zealand do a lot of bad things, and we're so busy doing bad things that we're going to lose our faith. I think our issue here is we get so busy and so busy doing good things for Jesus that we don't stop and be with Jesus, and our faith just gets to become a bit mediocre. And I guess that's my concern with this topic.